moving on to our next series. I guess I'm going next. It is it is Bukra no Amido Protocol, or also known as R Rainy Protocol, also known as Protocol Rain. So this is one of the more, how do I say this? More named ones on social media before we got into this season, right?
Yeah.
Um it was the esports series of the season. I can't believe esports stuff is becoming much more of a genre now, or I can't believe it. I just don't like it. It is done by Quad. Um, sorry, it is done by Quad Animation alongside a bunch of other um, studios in tow. Quad is a smaller studio and much more newcomer studio. They've that's been doing stuff. I want to say in the last like 1 or 2 years or so. They've only really done anime for Miss Kruitsu from the Monster Development Department, which had an interesting story. I covered that, but its video audio visual quality was quite lacking, which kind of shows up in here. But we're gonna get into that later, as well as My Life as Inukai-san's Dog, both TV and the OVA stuff, which Toast
Oh
covered
yeah,
as well.
that series
And that
pretty
was a
good.
little bit of the audio visuals on that was okay, right? I think.
I
So
like I believe the ending where they were running away from a pervert. That was a good ending.
okay. But yeah, they don't have much experience other than those two. The staff generally is various heavy duty veterans on the direction and the anime creation side. So, like sound direction, animation, editing, stuff like that. Most of them are pretty much veterans of many, many years of many, many series. A little bit, most of the producers are a little bit, again, green behind the ears, minus maybe Natsume Koichiro, who is a longtime veteran. So, yeah, most of it's like veterans here. For instance, again, chief director who's also doing um, series composition and sound direction. So which is kind of like, I don't know how to take this as a sign because I feel like if you have the money, proper money for a bigger contract on an anime, right? You usually do have more like people at the like job distribution, right? Um, but the fact that Yamamoto Yasutaka, who is the chief director, but he's also doing series composition and he did the sound direction for this series, is kind of telling me that they were a little bit, they didn't get as much money as maybe they would have liked for the man hours required for this series. But yeah, he is a veteran. He worked on stuff like Jitsu Watashiwa. He did Aharen-san, Negopara, Noblesse, Mondaiji Tachi, Valkyrie Chronicles. Did a lot of storyboard on other stuff. Um,
None
Obviously,
of those
again,
series gives me hope, Spider.
what about the bless? What about the bless?
Nope.
Here
Harem
would
Sun
say
was
that too.
actually quite good. So
Yeah, Hara-san
You
was decent.
you also said
Hara-san
Valkyria
Mondaiji Tachiya was
Chronicles, and
yeah.
I was like,
Uh,
no
uh,
thanks.
yeah, Hara-san Mondaiji Tachiya and Jitsu Watashiwa was decent. The other stuff was a little bit iffier. Um, there are again other veterans: Takayama Katsuhiko, Kosaki Satoru, Hirayama Kanna, who did what is it? She did like Oshinoko. She did sorry, character design for Oshinoko, Kanokari, action projects stuff like that. Goroku Hiroshi,
Did you
again
just say
like all.
Kanokari? How dare you?
Yes,
How dare you put that right after Oshinoko?
I apologize, but I have to mention like the bigger name stuff on the list. But yeah, so a lot of veterans, mostly on the animation stuff side and direction and so on. A little bit if you're on the production side, but anyways. Oh, by the way, the opening arrangement is actually done by Hiroyuki Saoda Hiroyuki, which is a little bit surprising, but it is
You
what
know
it
what,
is.
Spire? That proves my point. Remember when I said in the previews that hey, this kind of looks like Rent a Girlfriend? Well, guess what? Apparently, I was right.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, the opening and ending I didn't find I neither of them were very impressive. They were quite meddling. Um, I apologize to all of the Sauna Hiroki fans, but it is
Oh
what it
yeah,
is.
Oh yeah, Spire, how dare you? Name one good here. You name one good
Wait,
Sona
are you
song.
saying? I think that's the reverse, right? One bad. What?
What?
I think you mean one bad Hiroyuki Sanada.
Yeah, go ahead. Name one. No, name one good one, Spire. I'll
Name
wait.
one good. The thing is, like whenever I talk about Hiroyuki Sanada, I always think of like stuff like Gundam Unicorn. But Attack on Titan, right? Didn't he actually do the composition for Attack on Titan opening, or was that just the OST?
I think he did a couple. I think he did a couple of the earlier openings. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
now,
mainly remember him like whenever I have to like remember stuff by him, it's mainly like Attack on Titan, Unicorn, and the Guilty Crown. Oh, Kill la Kill as well. Kill la Kill.
all right, Spire.
He
I'll
was
give you.
also involved in fuck, what's it called? The mecha series that Urobuchi was involved in for one episode.
The
Oh,
Aldo
Alno
Zero, right?
Zero.
Yes,
Three,
I'll know zero.
three episodes,
Yes.
sir. Three
Oh,
episodes.
sorry.
But yeah, it was a little bit surprising to see his name in there, but it was a little bit middle. The voice acting cast is pretty much stacked with the standard A-listers of the past couple years: Ono Kensho, Mamiya Sora, Nase Inori, Waki Azumi, Kaede, Kuramomo, Ryuhei, Sugito Tobukazu, Tokiyoshi. All names that you should have seen in many, many other anime series in the past X. Pretty stacked, both on the staff side and on the seiyuu side for the most part. Um, the audio visuals are like so. The audio visuals when they're doing stuff in the real world is pretty standard. Okay. The character designs themselves are fine. However, when they're in the game, when they're playing, like when they're playing the esports game or whatever, the esports game's visuals are terrible. They are not good, and it is essentially like the game is a ripoff of Valorant, real life Valorant, and it's just like so so not good. Like
By
the
the way, when
visuals is
Spire
not
says when Spire says like it's a ripoff of Valorant, you might be thinking, oh, so it's like
a
so
team
they
game.
made like a sort of like a modern like tactical first person shooter or something. No, they kind of just like took assets and
Yeah,
threw them into whatever
even like
engine
the
they
planting of
could.
the mine, right? The bomb is like
Yeah.
exactly
Um, but
how
like the actual visuals are not like they're effectively impossible to describe. Um, like
it's like people
because
It looks
praising
like
the
it's like
visual. There
Gmod
should
and
be
made
nobody
by like
praising. Yeah,
either made I
should
don't
be
know,
nobody
like
should be praising the audio
you
visual,
can
or
tell
nobody
most
should
of the
be praising.
budget went to the animation and definitely not the esports part of this.
Yeah, and even I think in general the money for this, the contract, the amount of money in this contract for the series was just not there. Part they had to.
And
I
this
mean,
is
I
an
don't think
original, correct?
I would be hard pressed to find to think of a single studio that would actually be able to pull this off is the thing.
It's called The King's Avatar. They've done it like
Yeah.
3 times already.
Because like yeah, but like really
It's
because
weird because even the live action King's Avatar did the game better than whatever they're doing here.
They should
I
have
don't
just
know
done it
because
as
like
like a regular anime. Like I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
why they
well,
tried so
they
hard.
maybe they're trying to be cool, Spire.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think their idea was to try and
yeah.
like actually make it a game or whatever, and it's
And then they
like
realized,
oh
oh,
well,
we
not
can't do
obviously like
this.
release it, but
Wait,
like
wait, we can't do
not
this.
yeah to like do that almost like oh we'll do it like it's like a machinima or something, and then they realize that like wait a minute that means we need to make literally every asset,
Yeah,
and then and it's like
and
yeah that's gonna take more time than if you just
and
animated
the
it.
I watched the shooting. It's so bad. There's no muzzle flash. There's no recoil. It's ugh, it's bad.
No, it's like sub Counter-Strike 1.6. Like,
yeah, it's
It's
not good, but
it's like they're trying to play, I don't know, PUBG on the lowest graphic difficulty setting.
it's like they're trying to play a web browser version of Valorant. That is essentially what it is.
They're
But
trying to play what Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch.
they're not even
It's
like, this
bad.
is like, yeah, I mean, actually, I was gonna say this is like this is like an advertisement you'd see for a game that's like fake, on like
yeah, one of
Twitter.
those like
This is
Chinese
like,
mobile game kind of stuff,
yeah,
like on
where
the
it's like,
side of
they're
the
like
like
killing the
the image.
zombies and they're like running through the
Yeah,
multiplier, or like fucking
yeah.
the other one where they're like trying
You
to like
must
shoot a
cultivate the wealth
tower,
Hey
of this.
man,
Yeah.
hey man, don't diss zombie survival or whatever it's called.
or like
What's it
pulling
called? I don't
pulling the keys, like with
know.
Yeah.
Envoys like advertisements and shit. Like that's like where you'd expect to see like this, but for like a Valorant like
Yeah.
clone.
So
Who try to like fucking steal your
going
data.
yeah. So going over the esports cycle, it's not really that to begin with.
The
In the world
problem
of
is
esports,
that there's so much of the game they're showing, and it's so
yeah, because it's like an esports series. They have to show it, yeah. So
it's super jarring when you compare it to the main series. Kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
takes me out of it when I looked at it.
It's like the main like outside of the game. It's like Tawawa no on Mondays, right? It's like that, and that gets you no Tawa, right? And then inside the game, it's just like, fuck is going on? Like, what the fuck is this? Um, but yeah,
They
quick
have good
thoughts here.
artists on here, but then it's like, oh,
Yeah, they
like,
have veterans on there.
yeah,
These are the animation direction and like stuff is all veterans, but it's just like, and what I'm saying there,
Again, what they
I
tried to
think
do
that
is like fucking impossible. Like there is
yeah, it's
no
impossible, and they're not getting nearly enough money for what they're fucking trying to do. They're not getting
yeah, like
Valve money for this.
but
Yeah.
like
I
you
mean, I
could
think
do
the
this
only
series
way
easily.
you could pull this off is if you got a sponsor from a
I was
video
gonna say
game.
a licensed
Yeah, like
game.
from
Like that's the
Tencent.
only way to
oh,
do
Yeah,
this. Like if
Tencent.
you literally got sponsored by like fucking Valorant and like you just
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
Valorant. Like
Or like you got like Tencent money.
yeah,
Unless
like
that
there's
happens, you're
no
not. It's not.
yeah, there's no way to do this. Like even to animate this would have been hellish with what they like want to do, cuz like they want to give it that like authentic cut to like esports like gameplay feel or whatever. But it's like, obviously it's like animating that in 2D would not replicate that same feeling, and would also be like nightmarish too, because then you'd have to like, animate a fucking HUD or whatever and a bunch of shit
Yeah.
that would be also difficult either way. So kind of trapped
Also, it would
themselves with
like
this one.
you're only doing this for like X number of episodes too, right? You're not really like this is not gonna get like 5 different seasons. So
Yeah, I think in that regard,
um,
it probably was easier to like shit out like a Unity stand or like fucking Unreal like standard game or whatever.
I hope they're not using Unity because they'll be losing even more money. Haha.
yeah.
No, don't worry, don't worry. That guy, that's only for downloads, and that guy's gone now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But yeah, just going over the plot real quick. In the world of esports, Tokino Shun, the main character, is a second-year high school student who started working at esports cafe Fox One after her father's accidental death. However, it comes to light that Fox One is in a considerable amount of debt. In order to repay the debt, Shun and his friends enter the Zaxarian Championship to win the prize.
Like,
So
yeah,
that
well, maybe
plot
Fox
is
One's interior shouldn't look like a fucking like Qzar, like a fucking Dave and Buster's, like a laser tag arena.
yeah.
Maybe more people would come
that
in.
plot that plot is strangely similar to the King's Avatar in a way, and I
The thing
don't
is, I mean,
like that.
it's not a ripoff because
It's not
it's
an
like
original
most of
plot.
these.
Like, bro,
Yeah, it's not an
that's
original plot to begin with.
basically I mean, it's basically Love Live at that point, or even like the
Or
injured
like
family.
any competition kind of thing.
The thing that
It's the
yeah,
whole
like
beaten down,
I'm
downtrodden
pretty sure I'm pretty
pro
sure
comes
that was
back
this was
to
Yeah.
the
like
league,
part
and
of
it's like,
the
yeah,
premise of the what was that fucking movie with the Power Glove for
the
Nintendo?
wizard or something like that.
Yes, the Wizard. Yes, yes.
Oh man, that movie's.
This is the fucking Wizard. That movie's ass, by the way.
Hey man,
Um,
hey man, that's the
This
first
anime is
introduction
kind
anyone ever got to Super Mario Brothers 3 over here.
of.
I'll I'll give it props for that. The
yeah,
first time they
listen,
showed that off.
that's my college education, by the way, speaking. That's how I know about that fucking movie.
But yeah, it's a very standard. Oh, I'm secretly skilled. Gotta, I gotta get back into the game that I went away from, and so win the champ or whatever, and then please cast next to them and all that.
Isn't this the Hibike euphonium of
Esports series
esports?
is
Yeah. Or
that?
or not Hibike euphonium. What about is that the one where the piano dude and in the forest? What am I thinking of?
Piano no Mori, the
Is
piano,
that the one?
the
I don't know.
piano, yeah,
I didn't watch
the
those.
piano forest.
Spy, yeah.
Uh,
Is it more like that? I don't know.
I would say Piano no More is definitely more.
Okay.
But I mean, what do I say? It's a very standard. Let's to begin with. The baseline is the whole like, oh, I gotta get back, and then into playing the game for the shop, or he gets not railroaded, but like cajoled into playing the game again and stuff. And then it's like a balance currently, at least in a couple episodes, but it's probably gonna pan out. It's a balance between him playing the game and like them like talking about basic like video game stuff, right? Like, oh, there's low latency, blah blah blah. Like pros need to go above and beyond, or all that fucking crap uh, that people who don't play video games talk about when they're trying to make video game stuff. Um, and then
Wait, you're saying that it's like an E3 demo? The way they're
yeah,
talking about it?
yeah, exactly.
With like
They're
what
just
is it?
like saying
Was it
shit.
the district or what is that shooter game?
The
I
Division?
don't know. Uh,
The
You're
Division,
talking
yeah.
about?
Was it like the Division E3 demo? Or
No,
I
they're not like they don't like act out
they,
like that.
they don't use
yeah,
gamer speak?
they don't do, but
Oh man,
it's
it would have been better if they did.
yeah, it would have been, it could have been pretty funny if they did, but they do that, and then it's like some like character interactions development, plus sometimes like like as the cast or like different members come in, they're trying to um they have sometimes like episodic or like mini arc kind of plots where they're trying to either develop the characters or they're trying to chase down some like weird mystery or drama that happened. Um, and then there's also part of it. Obviously, they're going to go through the main characters' kind of struggles as well, but then also, um, honestly, the most interesting part I found I had about the series was the girl, I believe, Nozomi Natsuki, right? That's the brown hair girl. Yeah. Nozomi Natsuki, voiced by Inazumi Nori. Inori Minase, who is you know, okay at the game, but then because she's like a girl gamer and working at like the PC cafe, you know, she gets catcalled, she gets convinced into doing stuff she doesn't want to do, stuff like that. I honestly think that focusing on her and her struggles and stuff like that, similar to how sometimes like some like the side character struggles were elaborated upon in series like Ryo no Oshikoto or like Chihaya Furu, right? I think elaboration of her character and her struggles in terms of like being a girl gamer, but in this sort of esports environment or whatever, would be like 100 times more interesting than any of this premise, esports garbage, whatever it is that the series is going. And I think this series, obviously, the initial premise itself is very good, but it just suffers from too many like problems compounding together. It suffers from the original premise not being very novel, and the structure of it isn't that good to begin with. The whole "oh, I'm coming back, I'm going to succeed and win the championship." Like, come on, this
I feel
kind
like
of movie plot really got tired out in like the early 2000s, I want to say, or like
see like
in the late 2000s. Like,
I enjoy that in a sense where like what was it? Was it episode 2 where it's like you find out like his sister is like paralyzed or whatever and she's like, "Oh no, like you should get back into it if that's what like makes you happy." And like you should get back
yeah.
in and like you should win or whatever. And it's
Mhm.
like I feel like that level of cheese could be like really good and like really like melodramatic, but played up could be awesome. But the problem is, again,
Mhm.
the game's visuals are so bad that it's like,
Yeah,
uh,
I can't
this
get
is just
immersed, man.
such a, yeah, it's like such an integral part of this type of series. And it's so fucking bad.
I also
Like
think like
any other series that could have been like fine, I feel like. Even if they did animate it, even if this was like a full dive fucking VR game as its gimmick,
mhm.
like could have been like that sort of like melodramatic premise could have gone over far better. As long as like the visuals of the game weren't whatever the fuck
I
we
just
got.
think that like even if we go for like the return of the skilled player success story, you gotta stop, hiding and get back in and play the game that you enjoyed or whatever. Like even that's like okay, but even put it like e- even when we are like okay, this is a basic okay story structure, the whole as you said, like the game, and even not just like the game being shitty visually, but nothing that they are talking about with regards to the game, like whenever they're in any of the game scenes and they're like, oh, he's shooting so well, he switched to the knife, stuff like that is very, it's so obviously green eggs and ham level of like understanding anything related to these like games or stuff like that. It's just like for instance, again, if you compare it to the a lot of the Four Girls in a Club series, right? These days, stuff like Place Further Than the Universe, or stuff like Loop, or like some of these, like a lot of these other fishing series that we've had recently, right? Or like Let's Make a Mug Too, or Yamano Susume, or stuff like that. The level of detail and attention and trivia and like relevant stuff that I might be interested about in the theme is so present in those series, and it's so not present in this series that it's almost
Yeah,
offensive. It's like
I think it's
game.
because
Wow. It's
it
like
pigeonholed itself. Like
yeah.
I think again, I think a series like I think it's a huge mistake to do a non specific, like non sponsored um
Mhm.
game like this, like esports thing, and not make it like more like fantastical premise of like full dive like VR shit or something, you know?
Mhm.
Because I feel like
Mhm.
I feel like where you lose a lot of it is that like this is not game trivia at this point. This has to be like you're trying to do like esports trivia,
Introspective.
but
Yeah.
this game
You have
isn't
to do like
real.
character stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is like in the problem
I
that you
think
run
yeah.
into with this is that like this game is not real and you're trying to do esports trivia. So it's like you
Yeah.
could do like basic like Counter-Strike slash like fucking Valorant style fucking trivia or whatever, but it really won't. I don't know. I feel like it really won't click as much, if that makes sense, because it's not like you can. It's not like people have anything to really connect to. Like you can't do trivia about like Valorant characters. You can't do trivia about like Valorant specific like abilities, Valorant maps, like players,
Mhm.
anything like that, because it's not Valorant. It's just fake Valorant. So it's like
Yeah,
It would,
yeah, it's like you a lot of. I mean, I think yeah, it's definitely hard for this series in specific and
and
how
it's not
it's
even,
set up
and since
to
it's
go
esports,
to
like what I should say is specifically since it's esports, and since it's a Valorant type game, it's not like you have trivia that you can have this be a like game world or anything like that
yeah,
because it's fucking Valorant or Counter Strike. There's no fucking world. Like
yeah,
you plant A site or you plant fucking B site. Like
yeah,
okay, like
and you set up the
there
wall. Yeah, exactly. It's
yeah, it's
like
like there's no like you can't, you can't have an establishment of like lore in the anime for the game. Like you can't do any of that. So
it'd be funny if they did have an episode on like spray patterns, but even in like Valorant, it's not really.
even that it's just like so boring. Like it's so fucking like
Yeah,
and again for it to not be specifically Valorant, it's like okay, you can talk about spray patterns all you want, but it's like okay, that's like so intangible because it's not like you can connect to that as like a Valorant fan and be like, oh, dude, they're talking about like the spray pattern of this gun, or like if you're a count since I don't play Valorant, but if you're like a Counter Strike fan and it's like, okay, oh wow, they're specifically talking about Counter Strike, like CS goes AK spray pattern or something like that,
mm.
or like the different spray
Yeah,
patterns, but it's specifically like CS:GO spray patterns, like you can connect to
mm.
that more than like here's this fake game with spray patterns. Like that's such a like
Yeah,
I feel like intangible thing for a viewer that it kind of falls flat on its face. And that's just what I mean when I was saying like, the whole like a full dive MMO or something like works way better for that in my opinion
yeah.
because then you have like a world space to at least play with and establish. Whereas that like this doesn't.
I think also like two other routes that I could have done where it's the first one that it's kind of trying to do now is focus a lot more on the specific characters and their struggles in this very, very, very vague, ambiguous esports quote unquote quote world, right? Where it's just like it's more about the characters being like, I have to succeed or like whatever it is, right? Like all this fucking drama. And that's okay, but then it kind of I don't think you should sell it as an esports series. I think it's honestly kind of dishonest to call it an esports series because it doesn't bring anything of value to a gaming related and as an gaming related anime or an esports related anime. I think you should just focus on the drama and be like, oh, by the way, he's playing the James. He's playing all the video games. I think that would be one path to go about it.
Yeah, it should.
And then the
It
second
would have
path,
been better suited to just be a basic like tournament series
like
at that
dramatic. Yeah,
Or
point.
exactly.
maybe
Yeah,
they shouldn't have shown that much of the game by itself.
they really
That's
shouldn't have
Like
also
just
just
a thing.
too
shown the
much.
game at all. Like,
It's Valorant, and they should just have the computer screen like flashing white, like just like. But
would
Or
have
like, or
been
like maybe
better,
maybe
honestly.
5 seconds of the game in total every episode. They showed
yeah,
too
yeah,
much,
yeah.
too much.
Well, yeah,
Reduce
because
the
they tried
amount
to
of
do.
actual game.
They tried to literally show like a fucking what do you call it in like Counter Strike and Valorant where you like 1v5 wipe a team or something. Right, you're like last man
Yeah.
standing, and then you team wipe them.
Mm.
Like they tried to like show that at one point, and it's like, dude,
Ooh, don't.
you can't
This looks
fucking
terrible.
show me like him
Yeah.
killing 5 people in this. It's not even that exciting when you watch it in Counter Strike and Valorant. Like it's really not that exciting. Those
Yeah.
games are not
Yeah.
like I'm not saying that it takes no skill to play them or anything, and that's not like a high
Mhm.
skill ceiling, but they're not like the most high octane games as a viewer who's like not
Yeah.
knowledgeable of it. So
Mhm.
like showing like that it's just like no, like what the fuck, like this wouldn't look that great even if it was the real game, but like this is even worse because it just looks like it looks even shittier. Like it just looks like shit.
Mhm.
Gone are the days of Modern Warfare 2. What is it? Kill cams? It's not like that anymore.
It's and it's just like what also and like the other route that it could have taken, and I think if it did a very proper how do I say this? if it did enough research, I said research, I think it could have been okay. Is doing the esports side or doing the competitive game side, the human side of esports and competitive gaming and stuff like that, on a very much more detailed scale than again talking about like how it's like the mental issues you might have when you're trying to get into a game or really trying to grind through a game or becoming a pro. And obviously, there are people in the Japanese Valorant scene, pro scene and stuff that you could ask, um, as well as obviously the struggles of maybe again the female characters just being like, I'm trying to play fucking games here. I'm trying to play competitive games here, but these male motherfuckers are trolling me all the time and trying to catcall me and whatever. And I think that could have been interesting, and certainly something of value if it was really properly researched. But whether it's the lack of money or the lack of interest in doing that sort of research or the lack of proper esports infrastructure in Japan in general, or maybe a combination of all three of those, uh, it just you're just getting an esports series in name. You're just saying, "Oh, it's esports. It has games." You viewers like games and esports, right? Like and Valorant. You guys are like Valorant. Here, there's a series that has these things on the cover, and it's just a very um dishonest, I want to say at least, and very kind of trivialized series that is kind of offensive, especially for the people who, again, kind of want to watch these series to see these sorts of details, to see that gain not necessarily a sense of trust, but a sense of like um emotional relief almost, or a sense of happiness that's like, oh, when they made a series for this theme, they actually tried to put work into it. They actually tried to put their bag into it and tried to make something that would really appeal to the viewers. And I don't think they did. I don't think that these guys, as much as they might or might not have tried, really did a proper job in trying to build a series around this. And it's just very um it is quite disappointing, in my opinion. Um, and regardless of all the veterans working on here, all the city working on here, Sauna Hiroyuki, whatever, it the end product is just something that they should have just made a general generic series focusing on the character drama and stuff like that, instead of trying to label it as esports or competitive or whatever this is, or even just doing this in general. I just don't think it was a good idea, and they were quite clearly not ready for it. So, um, big disappointment overall. I don't think I really have to repeat myself. That's pretty much about it. I don't really want to repeat myself if I can help it. So, um, that's about it. And if I
You
had
know
to give
what?
it a mouse, yeah,
You know what I think? They should have just hired VTubers who play Valorant. Be like,
yeah.
hey,
Honestly, that wouldn't have been the worst idea, but
be like,
it is what
hey,
it
hey, we watch, or like make it about their Apex tournament, but maybe Apex is too much money to use.
I mean, they should
is.
have. I mean, they should have seen if at least in passing. I mean, this type of series. I don't know. I was thinking of this too. This is kind of like that Arcade Girl series, but if like you couldn't use any licensed fighting games in that, and like that would
Yeah.
be awful. Like because again, it's like these games are not these are not very like advanced games from a
Mm,
basic build up trivia perspective. Like when you think
mm.
of Counter Strike, like you know what that is. Like if you've played it or if you know the game or if like you've played video games, it's not like there's
And
not
I
a lot
think
going on.
also,
You know, it's like a fighting game.
and I
Like
think, yeah,
boiled it down at
and
the end of the day, it's like, yeah, there are two fucking characters on the screen and they have health bars and there's like stuff
and I
there.
think
But if you
also
don't use a
it's
licensed
easier
one, it's
to,
just goofy.
yeah, and
Wait,
I
what?
also think it's just easier to generalize and use a generic template of something like Street Fighter or Tekken and just kind of have that displayed as like a game with stuff going on in an anime or manga or whatever, then um well I think if you try to do a Counter Strike or a Quake or whatever, it will not be bad. But like it's a little bit harder, as you said, obviously, over and over again, to get into the specifics of it without really being like, yeah, this is Counter Strike. It's harder, and two, even if a little bit more of a deeper dig is possible, I don't think that they really tried that hard to do it. They were very much just like, yeah, let's just make not Valorant and then call it a day, which was again disappointing. So, um, yeah, it was just a very big disappointment all around, in my opinion. But as for the mouse score, I'd give it. The issue is it just gets so much minus points for both not being creative, not adding much to the genre it professes to be part of, and just being lazy, really, with the research. You guys have all these people, you guys have all these veterans, you guys have this stuff, and you know, to some extent, the esports culture exists in Japan, and to take all that and create this crap is very just disappointing. So I would probably have to give it a 2.5 out of 10, probably. Just disappointment. I just hate, the lack of effort more than anything else. So, um, and the lack of being able to kind of create a sensible series around this theme. The audio visuals included, obviously. So, very unfortunate. Lots of veterans in this series, or working on the staff and stuff like that, but not good. Just not good.